Hello, everybody. Season 3, episode 23. Here we go. A few really cool things we talk about this week around. So, give you a bit of a personal update. So, what's going on with myself personally and how busy it's been lately with speaking engagements and trade shows and fun stuff like that. Once that's done, we talk about our amazing friends, no matter what they say about them. The Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, they have been a little busy, all right? So we talk about what they're doing to raise the DSB baby. And, of course, we talk about what happened with OSFI and our friends at CIBC this past week, which we don't have some good things to talk about there, but definitely we have to be in the know on it. Finally, I talk about probably more of a commentary than anything, just about consumer confidence, Canadians spending money, what Zehrs and Loblaws are doing, and just a general commentary, maybe just venting a little bit, but, what I see happening with all these inflationary measures from the federal government, the state of our society a little bit, and maybe what we need to do to change things, okay? So the last part is more of a commentary than anything. All right. Other than that, let's get going.
Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
Hello, everybody. Season 3, episode 23, the Green Effect Podcast is on the air. Let's go. What a crazy second half of a 2-week period after the Bank of Canada raised interest rates. Some people were not expecting it. We all know what happened there with the bond market, but obviously there's no video right now, but right now this guy's pointing at himself with 2 thumbs because I was expecting it. I was calling that for at least a month before. Anyway, we'll get more into that in just a moment, and the cause and effect game of roulette that created. Anyway, just a couple of personal updates with myself. Probably not going to record a podcast next weekend. It's the long weekend. I need one hell of a break. It has been a grind, just an absolute grind, with this emotional roller coaster known as the Canadian housing market. It's been very, very busy. And of course, listen, I'm coming off a 6-month period where I've started up my own business as a mortgage agent. Loved every minute of it. Stressful as hell, but you know what? Fuck it. It's my own thing. Doesn't really matter. And I love it because of it. So there you go. A couple of other things. A crazy week for me. It's almost like it's this ramp up before the long weekend. It's like my business wants to get a hold of me one more time, tight and keep me busy the next few days before it lets me go for the long weekend. But I've got a guest speaking appearance this Monday evening for a first-time homebuyer seminar. For those of you who don't know, I'm recording this Sunday, June the 25th, but great first-time homebuyer seminar tomorrow night, and I'll be for anyone in London, as you may or may not know, we sponsor, we're a proud partner, whatever you want to call it, of the London St. Thomas Real Estate Realtor Association. So we'll be at the trade show this Tuesday morning for their AGM that they have. And they usually have a couple hours of a trade show in the morning, 450 real estate agents. Pretty excited about that. So if you are in London, stop by the booth. We have some kind of cool giveaways. And, you can walk away with some of our swag, which is kind of cool. So, and then of course, I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast, my in-laws, who currently live in southwestern Halifax, they had to be evacuated. And that's when we had our, quote, vacation down there to see them that got cut short because of, a forest fire here and there. But my father-in-law is going to show up, and because they're actually moving back to Ontario, so got to help him move some stuff into storage as they transition back to literally the big smoke. So it's just going to be a crazy, crazy week, and you know what? By the time the long weekend hits, I'm going to need a break, and we'll see how it all goes. Anyway, that's what's going on with me. In case you are wondering, where is that guy and what's up and why is he not recording a podcast on Canada Day long weekends? It's probably because I will be drinking to forget. So that's what's the update. All right, let's talk about this last week because holy cow, like it's such a crazy cause and effect game that we're playing. Okay, and it's not that it's scary, but it's just fascinating to watch. Maybe because I'm a bit of a mortgage nerd, this is fascinating, but it's just really interesting. And I think, listen, if you're in real estate, if you're a real estate investor, if you are a realtor, if you are anybody in that arena, you got to be in the know. This past week, I did two guest speaking appearances as well for two different real estate groups. And the one thing I told these rooms of realtors was the stuff that's going on when and maybe this is a bit of a shameless plug, but I don't give a shit. It's my podcast. So, you know, when you're working with a mortgage professional, agent, broker, specialist, whatever, they got to be in the know on this stuff. Okay. So listen, do we expect realtors, consumers, whoever to be experts at what's going on in the market? No, not at all, right? They're out there selling homes. Consumers are trying to buy homes, stuff like that. But, you know, mortgage professionals like myself have to be in tune to this stuff, right? For no other reason than to give the best advice possible to our clients. Okay, so here's what's now happened over the last couple of weeks. And you know, OSFI is, they've been in the news, man. If you didn't know what OSFI was before the pandemic, you got to know who these guys are now. So OSFI is the Office of the Superintendent for Financial Institutions. I talked about these guys last week on the podcast. I've kind of criticized them for being a little bit asleep at the switch. And, you know, I think when we talk about what I talked about last week with OSFI is they're getting on the bank's radar right now because they have concerns over these extended amortizations on variable rate mortgages that have these static payments. I'm not going to rehash it all on this podcast. Listen to last week's episode if you want to get caught up. But like seriously, if you were that damn concerned, you would have done something about this years ago. Like, should you not, as a governing body, be a little bit forward-looking? Because we know Tiffy Boy has no clue. That guy's wrong more than he's right. Even though I kind of defended him last week, that's a whole other story. But anyway, you know, these guys got to be a little forward-looking. When 4 or 5, I think it's 4 of the 6 big banks, I'm kind of lumping National Bank into there as well right now, but when 4 of the 6 big banks have static payments on their variable rate mortgages, you gotta know when the rocket ship's going up as fast as it was, this probably had to have a down at some point. Like, it wasn't just going to keep going right up to the moon. I mean, like, if you were that concerned about these variable rate mortgages, you should have friggin' spoke up before and done something about it. So I don't really feel bad for OSFI saying, well, banks, you guys got to fix this. You know, people with 90-year amortizations and their payments are 100% interest. Like, seriously, get off your ass and do something about it, okay? On that note, OSFI has, and again, I'm not gonna go into this in detail because a previous podcast I did this, but the domestic stability buffer, okay? If you didn't know what the DSB was before, again, you're gonna know now. So have a look back. We talked about the domestic stability buffer in a previous podcast. So a very, very quick Coles Notes version, which, by the way, apparently when you say Coles Notes version, you age yourself a little bit with the younger generation. Just saying. Anyway, the Coles Notes version of OSFI and this DSB. So the domestic stability buffer, super high level, is the amount of capital that the governing body of OSFI tells the banks they must have on hand relative to the amount of money they've left out. So don't forget how the money, again, very high level, don't forget how the money system works. The bank takes in money from customers, okay, at a rate of, I'm going to make this number up, let's say 3%. So we're going to pay you 3% on your money that you're holding with us, but we're going to lend it out at 8. Again, way oversimplified, not accurate numbers, but the banks pay less money to you on interest to hold your money than it does to charge interest on money out. Very, very simple, okay? So what OSFI is now saying, and what happened previously, is they increased the domestic stability buffer, okay, from I think it was like 2% or 2 or 2.5%, pardon me, to 3%, which was significant, right? It's easy to say 0.5%, no big deal, but when you're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars that these banks are holding, lending out, I don't know if it's trillions, but it's a lot of damn money. So they basically said, we see possible, and the wording was extremely careful, and we will say financially poetic, okay? Where they said, you know what? We're seeing some possible rough waters. We're all stable. If you read their comments, we are all very, very stable, okay? But we want to make sure that you guys, the banks, have enough money to weather these storms. We know, guys, let's just call it what it is. We know there's going to be loan losses. We know it's going to happen. We just hope it's not on a large scale, but we know it's going to happen. Just call it what it is, right? There will be power of sale properties where they got to take the house. Cars are going to be written off. It's going to happen. Like, it has to happen. The only hope is it's not on a large scale. So what OSFI is saying is, look, and they're right on this next part. The banking system is healthy. It kind of is. It's a little bit turbulent right now, but you know what? All these crazy Americans, by the way, love you guys, Americans. I absolutely love Olive Garden and all the other cool things. Kohl's is a very popular spot. Target, the OG Target. But when they're trying to short RBC and TD, remember, the Americans love a good bank failure story. They don't get at all how this economy works in Canada, where we did stress test our clients. We do have tight rules on everything, regulatory compliance. I know I'm kind of talking out two ends of my mouth, but relatively speaking, we do, okay? So OSFI is basically saying, look, guys, have a little more money saved up just in case shit goes a little more sideways than we're expecting. Let's call it what it is, okay? Now, what does this mean for, Joe who wants to buy a house? So it's going to mean a couple of things. If banks can't, and they have until November, so there's some time here, okay? Banks are going to have to raise capital, period. So you're going to see very aggressive returns on GICs and deposits and bank accounts. They need money to come in to back the lending book. Or if they don't foresee in forecasts that they can collect that extra money to make up for this DSB, this domestic stability buffer, they may tighten rules on lending and say, okay, maybe I'm making this next part up, but you know what? We're not going to grant exceptions. We're only going to grant one exception per file, not 3. Okay? Or we're going to jack rates up. Okay? We want to have higher rates to slow down spending. So in a way, OSFI is almost trying to, I don't want to say slow the market, but inadvertently they're doing that a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit. Okay, so this is big news, and remember, you kind of saw this coming a little bit because the other thing that OSFI did back in, sorry guys, I'm losing track of time, but I think it was back in December was when they moved the domestic stability buffer last. They also changed, and it was December, they also changed the maximum amount of domestic stability buffer to 4%, 4 or 4.5%. And so by doing that in December, I think in their heart of hearts, God bless them, they probably saw this coming. They were going to have to do it again. And if their plan, if I'm giving them too much credit for this, I'm going to shoot myself. But if their plan was say, okay, let's jack up the max amount, so in case we got to do it again, it's not as big of a news story. Genius. Thank God. Okay, because like I've said, and I said this a lot in my presentations last week to the realtors I was presenting to, Canadians have to feel confident. There has to be a certain element of confidence in the housing market and consumer confidence. Not to get completely off track here, but when I was presenting last week, I presented consumer confidence index and real estate confidence index. And an index statistic is simply just they survey a bunch of people and tell me how you're feeling. Okay. Probably a bunch of people within a particular demographic, income range, et cetera, et cetera. So consumer confidence and real estate confidence has increased, right? So if OSFI did plan to probably increase this DSB later and only increase the DSB and not the max amount, smart, because Canadians got to feel good, right? They've slowed down the market a little bit with this DSB going up, but not increasing the limit. Good on them, right? This should not smack the housing market or the economy hard, just enough, maybe a bit of a poke. Hey, just heads up, right? We're expecting some possible headwinds here on possible issues coming down the pipe. But by and large, I will say in OSFI's comments, they did express a lot of confidence in the banking system, which is nice to see, believe it or not. Okay. Continuing along with the OSFI theme, oh boy, CIBC, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, they're in a little hot water. So some history on CIBC, and CIBC, for a lack of a better term to describe them, they're kind of like the troubled kid in the sandbox. The kid that he's playing with his friends and he's throwing sand, but he's making sure the parents aren't watching the kids before he does it or she does it. That's CIBC. Okay, so I remember back, and the years might be a little bit fuzzy, but at this point in the podcast, you're probably used to me getting older and having a shitty memory. Anyway, 2014, 2015, CIBC was well known in the industry as the 35% down, no questions asked bank. We all knew it. Okay, 35% down, boom, mortgage. See you later. Okay. There was some underwriting involved. I mean, they wouldn't just do everything, but pretty damn close, to be honest with you. So OSFI, who had to get involved back then as well, I'm pretty sure OSFI has its own office at the CIBC Tower, okay, in Toronto. Kind of like how the NBA probably has an office, in Vegas, trying to monitor the gambling issue. Anyway, so CIBC, in a little bit of hot water this week. So OSFI is putting them under remediation, okay, because of their mortgage portfolio. And I'll explain what remediation means. Basically, they're going to babysit these guys, okay, because what has been happening over at CIBC is, and they talk about the way they've audited borrowers and some of these mortgages. So let's say you get so there's two parts here. Let's say you get a mortgage, okay, and they say, all right, so we'll give you this $500,000 mortgage. However, to make the affordability work, as a condition of the application, we need you to pay and close a line of credit, a credit card, a loan, okay? And so you would think, all right, before the mortgage gets advanced, the bank better make sure that's done, right? Did you actually close it? Or whatever products were part of the condition. What OSFI found is that CIBC wasn't going back and checking. Did we actually close the loan? Did we actually close the credit card? Did we actually close the line of credit that was a condition of getting the mortgage? Okay. So basically, the oversight at CIBC has put them in hot water, especially when we're now in a market where the people are tighter for credit, affordability is just stretched, etc. Okay. The other part, and this one here, I kind of have trouble understanding it a little bit, but they were talking about the fact that when they had I believe, if I understand this correctly, it's how they service the mortgage. So, for example, if you have a mortgage and a line of credit in a HELOC, so what banks will do is they will do, to give reference, RBC has a home line plan, Scotia has a step program, TD has a flex line. I don't know what CIBC calls theirs, power line, maybe, something like that. And BMO has a homeowner ready line of credit. So these are what the products are called. And basically in those products, let's say you're approved for 500,000 total. Okay. How you cut up the 500, the bank doesn't really care. Okay. But most banks will qualify you on that complete limit of, let's say, 500,000. And then how you cut it up, you want a line of credit for 200, a mortgage for 300. Cool. We qualified you at 500, doesn't matter. But what I'm understanding here, and if someone knows something different, please speak up. The CIBC mortgages, they were only calculating, I believe, on the current zero balance, or they weren't calculating it properly for the revolving credit line portion and only the mortgage portion, which were throwing out the affordability numbers. Okay. So this is where now OSFI is saying, whoa, that's not really acceptable, right? That's not good for affordability. So there's a lot of things, I guess, again, trouble kid in the sandbox. Unfortunately, when you get caught once with something, everyone's going to come back and check on you. Is it fix it? Are you getting better at this? Do we need to impose more sanctions not the right word, but more rules? Do we need to spend more time with you remediating issues? Okay, so what does this mean at the end of the day? It just simply means OSFI is probably going to check the rest of the banks too, right? OSFI is there to manage and monitor the banks, the rules. These folks are famous for implementing the stress test that we all love, okay? So this is really what their job is to monitor the management of the banks, okay? So more to come on this. So now we've had OSFI in the news for all sorts of stuff, right? Finger wagging at the banks over this amortization issue that they should have known about to begin with, but that's a whole other podcast, right? We've got them now monitoring CIBC, and then of course the domestic stability buffer. So, but we're probably not done, right? OSFI is going to be in the news a lot coming up, but what I like about their commentary is they seem to be a little supportive, which is kind of crazy to say, but we'll see what happens with OSFI. So when you hear OSFI, Office for the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, in the news, listen up. Stuff's going down, okay? Switching gears. So let's talk about what the hell Canadians are doing. Because I spoke briefly just in the last section about OSFI around consumer confidence and how confident consumers are. And this is what we're starting to notice. I don't know if Canadians really understand what's going on and the fact that these rate increases are going to hurt eventually, right? And so my commentary here on this is we're in very much of a society right now where we seem to spend money with little consequences. I was driving, where was I? I might have been at a Starbucks or somewhere, but people are lined up around the block just to, I can't remember what it was. If they were lined up to buy like coffee or food, it was just insane. But I drove by and I felt like rolling down my window, yelling out the window, whoa, recession. Where's the recession coming? Stop spending money, right? I think Canadians in general have to understand that we are the most indebted nation in the world. And I don't know if it's really sunk in yet that this could cause more issues. Having said that, where I'm going with this, when we have a federal government, I don't even care what the party lines are, it doesn't matter, right? But when we have a government giving out money to everybody, like, so my wife just got a climate check. Did anyone else get this? $180, right? Climate change check. Well, I'm confused. Maybe someone can explain this to me. So why is my wife getting money? Not just, I'm not saying my wife shouldn't get money. Our family maybe is the better way to put that. But why is our household getting money from the government when they are absolutely killing us with this carbon tax? I don't get it. I'm not understanding this. Okay? If JT and Disney Plus lady are listening, for the love of God, stop giving out money. You are causing inflation. My wife gets this money. Guess what she says to me? And honestly, it was a joke. But you know what my wife says to me right away? And it's probably how a lot of Canadians are thinking. Hey, I got $180. Where do you want to go for dinner? My wife, God bless her, she doesn't listen to this podcast, so I can say whatever I want for the most part. Just nobody tell her. My wife pretty much encompasses the stereotype of what Canadians are like. We have money, we spend it, right? We are very good savers. There's no doubt. Like, we save, but the folks with mortgages, with the life stage where they're kind of in the middle, where they got younger kids, or they're in the life stage where they're kind of spending money. Dude, they spend money, right? Now our kids are a little bit older, but that's still the mentality of my wife. And I think that just kind of captures what a lot of Canadians are like. So this cycle, in conclusion, this cycle has to slow down. And we have to look at what the inflationary measures are right now that are contributing to this. My wife doesn't get a $180 check. I'll tell you right now, she's not asking to go out to eat. She's not. Doesn't have $180, right? So I think we're in a bit of a crazy ass cycle right now. And until unemployment comes down, until the federal government stops giving out goddamn money to people like it's going out of style, this is going to continue. And on top of that, we absolutely need immigration. I'm just not sure we need as much as we have right now. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Right? And I say that not from an argumentative standpoint, but I would love to hear thoughts around, what do we do here? How do we change? And I've said this before earlier in the podcast. How do we slow down consumer confidence so that we're not, good God, folks, if you've ever been out to dinner lately, do you know how expensive that is? Like, 2 people with water would cost $70. Like, it's insane. So how do we slow down this consumer confidence so we can get shit back on track? It is a great question to ask. I would love to hear your comments. Because, just one more little side note before I end this podcast, I was walking out of Zehrs. That's maybe an inflationary measure right there. I should be shopping at No Frills, regardless. I'm walking out of Zehrs. For those of you who are not in Kitchener-Waterloo, we always go to the Zehrs at Stanley Park because they are the busiest one all the time because they have underground parking. Just saying, okay? Walking out of Zehrs, and a young girl, maybe 16, asks to see my bill, to check my cart. That, my friends, combined with, if anyone else has ever been to Zehrs lately as well, sorry, one more thing. Remember the self-serve checkout during COVID? They took off that feature where you had to put all your food you're buying on the scale to make sure you weren't cheating. Remember that? That's back. So we now have 16-year-old girls checking your bill on the way out to make sure you're not stealing money. They're stealing food, money too, but food. And the scales are back on the self-serve checkout. And the damn scale table is like friggin' 12 by 12. Good luck putting, your bag of groceries worth $800 on that. Not going to happen, right? But this is what we're now coming to. People are going to start to cut corners. They're going to start to steal food because they can't afford it. So, how do we slow this down is my question. On that Debbie Downer note, hey, make sure you like, love, and follow my podcast or whatever, okay? 5 stars is always preferable. And until then, like I said, I don't think I'm doing a podcast this coming weekend. If I do, because I'm trying to, escape my family or whatever, then, hey, I'll be on the air. But other than that, expect not one this weekend, okay? Folks, take care. Have a very, very safe, hopefully relaxing long weekend. Fingers crossed the weather's good. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.